All right, let's talk about role equals document. It's this small but honestly super powerful attribute in web development that can make a huge difference for people using assistive tech. It's a really simple tool, but it solves a very specific and, let's be real, a very frustrating problem.
So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll dive into what I'm calling the application trap. Then we'll see how reading mode comes to the rescue. After that, we're going to pop the hood and see how it works, cover the golden rules of when and when not to use it, and then we'll wrap up with the key takeaways you'll definitely want to remember.
Okay, section 1, the application trap. Let's start with the problem itself, because this is where navigation that feels totally normal to a lot of us can just completely fall apart for some users.
So let me ask you, have you ever been using an app and just felt stuck? You know that feeling where your usual shortcuts or controls just stop working the way you expect them to?
Well, for a screen reader user, this can happen all the time. Just imagine you're kind of walking through a website. You're using your arrow keys to read text, maybe moving character by character, nice and easy. Then, all of a sudden, you hit a complex widget, and it's like your controls switch from walking to driving a car. Your arrow keys don't read the text anymore, now they're jumping you between buttons and menus. And just like that, the basic ability to just read is gone.
But there is a way out of this trap. And that brings us right to our second section, the reading mode rescue. And here, we get to meet the hero of our story, the role equals document attribute.
So, what is this thing really? Well, role equals document is basically a little flag you put in your code. It's a signal to assistive tech that says, hey, I know we're inside this complex, interactive thing, but this one little section right here, just treat it like a normal page. That's the cue the user needs to switch back into their familiar reading mode.
Think about a pop-up dialog box. You know how you can usually just tab between the buttons, like the close button right here, but what if you actually need to read the info in the middle? By adding role equals document to that text area, you're telling the screen reader, hey, let the user read this part. You're creating this little readable island, so they can switch gears from clicking buttons to just reading text with their arrow keys.
So we know what it does, but how does it actually work? Let's get into section 3 and unlock the mechanics of how a screen reader flips from that application mode back to a normal browse mode.
Okay, let's walk through with the user experiences. So they hit an interactive widget and boom, their screen reader goes into application mode, ready to handle all those complex controls. As they tab through, they land on our special text section, and that's when role equals document is detected. That's the signal. Instantly, the screen reader flips back into reading mode, and just like that, the arrow keys work for reading again. It's this totally seamless handoff, all thanks to that one little attribute.
Now, this is a really useful tool, but you can't just sprinkle it everywhere. And that brings us to maybe the most practical part of all this, Section 4, the golden rules of use. We're going to cover when to use it, and maybe even more importantly, when to back away.
So here's the deal. It's all about context. You should only use role equals document when you have some static, readable text, like instructions or a little blurb that's trapped inside an interactive widget. Now, on the flip side, you should never use it on just a standard web page where everything's already readable. And if there's a better semantic tag like article, you always use that instead. Think of role equals document like a scalpel, not a hammer. It's for surgical fixes.
Okay, check out this perfect example. Imagine you're in some complex web app, right? It's got buttons and sliders everywhere. But somewhere in there, there's a little block of static help text. This is where you create a reading oasis in the middle of the interactive desert. By wrapping that help text with the right attributes, you give the user a focusable island they can land on, read freely, and then just tab right back out into the app.
And here is what not to do. You would never, ever slap this role on something that's already a document, like a news item on a web page. I mean, the article tag itself already screams to screen readers, hey, this is content for reading. Adding the ARIA role here is basically putting a hat on a hat. It's redundant, it adds zero value, and it just clutters up the code.
All right, we've gone through the problem, the solution, and the rules of the road. Let's wrap it all up with Section 5, your key takeaways, so all this good stuff actually sticks.
So, let's boil it right down. Role equals document is your secret weapon for bringing back reading mode and normal text navigation. But, and this is a big but, only when you need to bust out of an interactive context. Avoid it on normal content.
And out of all these rules, there's one tiny technical detail that makes or breaks the whole thing. You have to make it focusable.
Okay, if you only remember one piece of code from all of this, make it this one. For role equals document to even work, the element has to be focusable. The user has to be able to get to it with their tab key. The easiest way to do that? Just add tab index 0. If you forget that, the screen reader might just blow right past it and all your hard work is for nothing. It is the one attribute you absolutely cannot forget.
So there you have it. Role equals document is a tiny attribute that solves a massive problem. It really proves that in accessibility, the little details are everything. And that kind of leaves me with one last question for you to think about. What's another small detail you've seen out there that makes a huge impact on accessibility?